It's March 28th, 2022. This is Roqe. He is a multidisciplinary artist who studied classical music in Iran, but more recently has been working in the realm of the intersection between music creation and artificial intelligence. Futurist and technological entrepreneur Ash Koosha joins us to discuss music in the metaverse later in the program. But first, the life and legacy of iconic Iranian novelist, poet, and activist Dr. Reza Baraheni, considered the founder of literary criticism in Iran. Director and writer Arsalan Baraheni joins me for a very personal remembrance of his father, who died this week. Plus, we have your letters about our Nowruz video. This is Conversations from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode 172 of Roqe. Hope you're keeping well, wherever you're tuning in from around the world. Hello to you from Toronto, Canada. Salam Dustan Aziz, Durud Bar Shama. Hi, Shaya.
Hi, Azizam.
How you doing?
Great.
And hello, Reza. Sorry, Captain Reza.
Hello, sir.
Captain Reza, as known from such videos as the Nowruz, the Roqe Nowruz video.
And finally, they got to see Captain Reza on screen.
Looking very handsome and doing some very strange dance moves.
Very weird.
You're not so much dancing as, the rest of us were dancing. You're just kind of, you're doing moves. You do you do kind of a move and then you stop and... Yeah,
chase on
arrhythmic, I might add. Really nothing to do with the music, Reza's moves. But he looks good. It looks somehow planned.
Well, the editing worked. I tried to cut out all the...
That's right. You happen to... I like how... Don't you love how Reza edited the video? And there's lots of Reza in it. It's just like Reza everywhere. It's like he was really happy with his dancing because there was so much Reza in our Nowruz video. We'll get to the Nowruz video a little later. Ash Koosha coming up on this program. So Ash, his official name is Ash Koosha.
Yes,
and he folks will remember him from an indie pop band, rock band he was in called Take It Easy Hospital. You might remember if you were in Iran at the time. And he was one of the stars of that Bahman Qobadi film, No One Knows About Persian Cats. Right? And then he left Iran that was in 2009, left Iran a few years after that. He's in London, England now, where his primary mission seems to be involved in innovation as a futurist, thinking about what's going to be happening in the future. And he's on this mission to build virtual musicians.
Wow.
Robot musicians who not just perform but write music. Yeah. Replacing,
It's like, oh, jeez.
So we'll get to Ash Koosha in London later in the show. In just a few minutes, we're going to remember Dr. Reza Baraheni. And this is he is a great intellectual. Iranians inside Iran and in the diaspora will know him. I had the great pleasure, and I will say it was a pleasure to know him over the last 20 years. I had a couple of interviews with him that I'll talk about a little later in the show that really stick with me. He was brilliant in terms of not just his writing, but his philosophical thoughts, his way of seeing the world, his perspectives. He was dealing with Alzheimer's in recent years. And so, and a lot of Iranian Canadians will know him because I guess after the 90s, when the family he had to leave Iran because he was going to be in trouble with the regime there. He ended up in Toronto, where he taught for a while at the University of Toronto, I think at York, and he was the president of PEN Canada, which is a group that supports and protects writers around the world, freedom of speech, etc. So a lot of Iranian Canadians know him, and certainly in the Toronto area would have seen him in recent years. But not so much in the last 3 or 4 years, where he had really declined in health due to his Alzheimer's. So his son, Arsalan Baraheni, which many folks will know, he's also an artist himself. He's a writer, he's a director, he's a producer. He's going to join us to talk about his dad, who passed away just 3 or 4 days ago. So I'm appreciative that Arsalan is coming on. As soon as we got the news that Reza Baraheni had died, you didn't know that I had some.
I was shocked.
I knew him, yeah. But you texted right away to say that he was an important figure for you.
Of course, yeah. And also, the passing away of Mr. Baraheni was sad. But what was more sad for me is like how we are not shocked, we are not grateful for this, because he is beyond any parties, his literature, I mean his poetry is fascinating. Why don't we can celebrate his
for a certain section of the Iranian diaspora? He even in his death, he becomes a referendum on what his politics were, and an ideological debate and all of that kind of stuff, as opposed to appreciating what he's been called the founder of modern literary criticism in Iran, right?
Yes. And I heard a story. Someone sent me a video of him, and he was talking that when he was in school, he only knew speak in Turkish, and so the school forced.
Well, he was there from Azerbaijan. He was from Tabriz.
Tabriz, yeah. And so he wrote a wall newspaper, Ruzname Divari, in Turkish, and his teacher forced him to leak his.
Lick the paper?
Yes, because it was in Turkish, and they forced him, you have to write in Farsi.
Oh my God.
So, and he was leaking the paper, and all the students making fun of him, because all the you
know what my favorite part of that story was? Ruzname Divari, a wall newspaper. What is that? I've never heard of a wall newspaper.
Farsi. We call that Ruzname Divari.
But what is that? It's a newspaper you put on the wall?
Yeah, it's like you make a collage of a different type of headlines.
We don't have wall
newspaper.
Scrap paper.
And you just you don't put it on the wall. It's like a board, right?
Yeah, but the reason is they call it Ruzname Divari is that you put it on the, and it's like a kind of a manifest of each, it's kind of.
And what was it about?
Is it like it's like a pinup board or something?
Like a pinup board.
Like a bulletin board?
Kind of.
Like
so it's called Ruzname Divari, but it's not really a newspaper.
No, it's a bulletin. It's exactly that, right?
Okay. Well, I know we have bulletin boards.
Yeah, it's like a bulletin board.
This wall newspaper you're trying to import, though, I don't know if that's going to take off in the digital era.
Wall newspaper. Come on.
I want my son to come to your school, but do you have wall newspaper? I'm sorry, sir. I prefer for them to have wall newspaper. You do not have? Sir, we can arrange for some newspapers to be pasted on. No, I want regular in the school, regular new wall newspaper.
Bulletin board would do? That should be okay. Thank you.
Bulletin board, bullet? No, we don't want bullets.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a very sad
now
story.
We got loose. Yeah. So the point is, Dr. Baraheni, I was really saddened, even though his health had declined in recent years. Maybe I'll talk about the interview that I did with him when I'm talking to Arsalan. It was in there's a couple, but there's one big one that I did with him. It was pretty early in my days doing national interviews. It was like 2006 or something, but it just stuck with me, man. He was just such a master of language. You know, not just in Persian. I mean, I know he's known that. This is ironic, the story you're telling, that he only used to write in Turkish because he becomes this master of Persian and English, you know, in terms of his prose, right? So we'll get to that. Very grateful to Arsalan Baraheni, who obviously is, these must be difficult days for him, navigating the death of his dad, but he's going to join us for a little bit. Well, a lot happened over the weekend. There was the Oscars, the Academy Awards, and some hijinks there, which I don't think we need to talk about because everywhere else it's been talked about everywhere else. But I wanted to mention, because it's a through line now, because we've been talking about the World Cup that's coming up later this year in Qatar.
Yes.
And, you know, we got all excited because Iran has now been confirmed in. My England is also confirmed in. So my Iran, my England, and now 3 out of 3. 3 out of 3. Canada.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
3 out of 3. So Canada is now in the World Cup.
That's insane.
For the first time since 1986. I must say, this is going to be quite a World Cup.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Pashim Betty. Can we go? Shaya, can we? Maybe if Keon will lend us some money.
No. If Keon comes, I'm not going to go. She'll slow us down.
No, but Keon can get us the tickets, you know.
I know. Where is she?
Well, this is the thing. Okay, so yeah, I should actually mention Keon. So you'll hear there's a voice missing. Normally on our Roqe on air team, you got the Reza and Shai. We're missing the fabulous Keon. So Keon texted me yesterday saying she was feeling feverish and nothing.
Again?
I know, but she said, but I don't know if it's COVID. First of all, she's had COVID at least a dozen times. So I don't know how she keeps getting COVID.
We know of.
Yeah. I don't know how the COVID seems to. I mean, there's this rule like for 90 days you can't get it again.
Apply to her. Apparently.
She's just keeping it. So I mean, obviously we hope that Keon is getting better. But so then this morning I said, "Are you feeling any better?" Because yesterday she was saying, "Hopefully I'll be better in the morning. Come in the studio." She said, "No, not feeling well. Gonna be in bed." We talked about her getting on the phone. I've been texting her for the last hour.
What?
Nothing.
She's not answering?
Oh. No.
You know what? Get her on the phone. Shaya. Call her.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Call her.
Well, we could. She's probably in.
Whatever.
Sleeping.
Well, we'll find out.
All right.
Let's call her. Let's see.
So Canada in the World Cup. So you get her on the line. Go ahead. Oh, you call her. Okay. Poor Keon. Keon June. She's not going to answer.
No, she's not going to.
Is it you?
Hi, sorry, I was just texting. Hello?
Keon?
Yeah, I was just texting you back. I was going to say, I don't know if you want me to, but...
Okay, we're live. The show's on. Right?
Show's on.
Oh, okay.
It's me and Reza and Shaya.
Hi, Kian Jan.
Hi, Kian Jan. We were just saying که انشالله هر چیز زودتر کیان خوب بشه.
Actually, we weren't saying that. Reza was complaining that you've had COVID too many times.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kian.
On a COVID that you passed on to the rest. You know what's even more hilarious? The fact that I'm flying tomorrow. And, well, thankfully, the COVID test came negative. But anyway.
You're flying tomorrow. Where are you going?
Yeah, I meant to tell you this. I didn't want to just, like, travel. And then you probably assumed that, oh, she pretended to be sick. I'm going to Turks and Caicos, so I won't be able to join.
Oh, my God. You can't write this stuff. I swear to God. Like,
you just came back from somewhere, didn't you?
That was December. This is... Like,
okay, hey, first of all, Keon, are you in an aquarium? Like, so why does it sound like this? Can you?
Because
are you using a headphone? You're using a
no. I'm just
okay. That's better. That's better. That's better. Yeah. So first of all, what's wrong with you?
I have a cold, I think.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not as dramatic as it seemed when you weren't responding to text messages.
We got worried.
Yeah.
No. Wait, this is live recording right
now? Yeah, we're on right now. Shaya actually literally asked if you were still alive. It was like,
honestly, Jian,
it was like, no.
I was passed out the last few hours. I just completely went out.
Okay. So are you? So you're. But you're planning on going on another vacation tomorrow that you hadn't told me about.
Fantastic.
How long are you going for this place that you haven't even told me?
I'll be back on Sunday.
Okay. So you're not going to miss next week's show.
Right. Just a weekend trip to Turks and Caicos.
That's beautiful. Well, good for you.
That's awesome.
Well, Keon, so we hope you get better. So do you like? I guess you have to sort of hide the fact that you're sniffling and stuff when you get on the plane, because they say that,
I have to be a very good actress. No, I think I'll be better by tomorrow. It's just one of those. I was bad yesterday. I was probably the worst.
Okay.
Drop a couple of edibles like last time and pass out.
Keon, we were just talking about the fact that Canada has made it into the World Cup.
Yay.
Yes, it's big news.
I mean, Canada, your team, the U.S., will likely get in. So Canada, the U.S., Iran, and England. I mean, we really should make the plan to go to Qatar, right?
Oh, let's do it.
I mean, I was planning on it until I don't know.
Got sick?
That and also, so I applied. I don't know if I told you, I got the tickets, but then I would have had to be in Qatar for 3 weeks to go to the 3 games that I wanted to go to. 3 weeks in Qatar is it's a tiny country with not much else to do besides go to the World Cup. So
yeah, but at World Cup time, it'll be amazing, and you seem to be able to take off as much time as you want from your.
That's
You're fabulous.
But then you have to. It's true. You have to also pay to be in Qatar for.
What else? Is there anything in Qatar besides?
Have you been, Keon? Because you lived in
I've
Kuwait.
never been, no. But it's a tiny country, so I would imagine, 3 weeks in Qatar would be
No, it's a rich country. They'll probably be...
And there are no drugs. It won't be fun.
What is it with you? That's the third drug reference. By the way... let me talk about Reza and the Nowruz video. Okay, hang on a second. Let me say we're coming to you at roqemedia.com. It's there that you can link to all of our platforms. We're on an ongoing mission to build a new audiovisual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. So you can find us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and CastBox. Those are our podcast platforms if you like to listen to the podcast. In terms of social media, if you want to watch what you're hearing, Instagram and YouTube, and if you like to see your bulletins in English, your Ruzname Divari in English and in Persian. Check us out on Telegram. All of those handles are at Roqe Media. And we crowdsource how we make this thing happen, so we do it through patrons. So if you go to our website, roqemedia.com, and become a patron, it means a lot to us if you're a regular listener, or even if you just started and you like what you hear. $5 or $10 a month, as simple as that. You just go to the Support Us button on the main page of the website and become a patron. And if you want to give more than that per month, you can do that as well. We really appreciate that. Imagine this is a newspaper, Ruzname Divari subscription that you're paying for. So this Nowruz video, first of all, it's lovely. It's getting all kinds of wonderful comments. We posted it on the weekend. A video, our second annual home video for Nowruz, where we say Happy Nowruz to everybody, and we dance around a little bit, get a little reflective. There's some poetry in there. We speak only in Persian, and people have a laugh at my Persian, me and Keon speaking Persian. But so we've been, the nice thing is the comments have just been so lovely about how people thought it was touching, because we were talking about Shaya a lot in the video. You talk about and Anahita and Super P talk about missing Nowruz in Iran. And so we invite you to go see the video. Keon, one thing that I thought was really interesting is that, so Reza edited the video, right? How much Reza is in the video, first of all?
Very little.
I mean, there's the guy is like, I was like, wow, he really must like the way he looks in this video.
He also thinks he's a great dancer, apparently.
Well, I don't know if it's dancing or like he does these weird moves. I don't know what that is, if that's dancing or not.
Some overconfidence here, my man.
Swirling around, I feel like I'm dancing.
But you know why he was so confident? This is where I want to bring it together with all his references today. You know what was going on that night? I mean, you remember Keon.
There was nothing going on.
He was wasted.
But he was high.
Nah.
You were like,
I was.
You were laughing. You were speaking gibberish. If people see you at the table, I mean, you were
This was a wedding. I'd be escorted out. They'd be like, "Get that guy out of here." He's wasted.
There was times when Reza was holding the camera because he shot most of it, and then he would drop he would lower the camera, and he'd be talking to us. I'm like, Reza, get it on video. Hold the camera back up. I was laughing so hard.
Actually, speaking of holding cameras, a big credit should be given. Credit should be given where credit is due. Is Shaya, man. His cinematography was good.
Well, I thought you were going to say Savi Roham, because Savi Roham also gave you an assistant, did a bunch of the editing.
He did, and he's a good videographer too. But Shaya also.
So, and the other thing that I thought was interesting about Reza's edit, Kian, is that he put you in the beginning and the end.
Yeah, that was odd. Reza, do you want to come clean about something or
what? It's good. It's fun. It's choreography. You guys are dancing, but I didn't end it with Kian.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, no, you know why? The reason is because she's a diva that she is. She wasn't standing at the counter with us.
I don't know why, like her feet were hurting or something. She went and sat at the, Kian, have you been getting nice comments about all your dancing in the, how did the doctor?
Not about my dancing specifically, but mostly the Persian speaking, I guess, was a little entertaining for a lot of my friends, you know. By the way, what is the translation for
renewal?
For renewal.
No شدن.
Yeah. I like how you made a video making fun of her for not knowing that.
Nobody helped me out, by the way. Nobody.
Do you know, Kian, do you know what the word for the term for bulletin board is? Like if at school when you have a bulletin board on the wall?
You're seriously asking?
Yeah, for real. It's a new
You're not going to get it. I'll just tell you.
Yeah, no clue.
Ruzname, it's like a saga abi. It's
good.
Ruzname divari.
Ruzname divari.
Yeah, because we stick it on the wall and it's Ruzname.
Like wall newspaper. Like Shaya said, he would write for the wall newspaper, and I was like, wall newspaper? What's the wall newspaper?
Yeah, and I was
he means bulletin board.
So we had it. It's a real thing. Ruzname divari. Very popular.
Are you sure it's a bulletin board?
No,
or maybe was it actually
a bulletin board? It's a bulletin board.
Right.
It is definitely a bulletin board. Yeah.
All right. Well, Kian, we're going to talk about. We got a bunch of letters for the Nowruz video. We'll read them without you, but we'll be thinking about you, and obviously it's going to be a very difficult few days ahead of you going to a vacation in Turks and Caicos. I like how I was really genuinely feeling sorry for her. I was like, poor Kian, she's not feeling.
Didn't work out.
So her biggest concern is how to get ready for the, get the luggage ready.
I realized that. I realized you were getting really genuine with your wishes. Didn't work.
By the way, Kianjan, you asked me that what's the English term for senjet in the video. It's Russian olive.
Oh, Russian.
Well, we put that in the video.
Yeah.
Did you not watch the video?
The final version.
Thanks, Shia. It's the translation is there in the video. It's descending quickly. All right. Well, Kian, any final words before you? I mean, so you're going to come back with a fabulous tan, obviously.
Yes, I'll see you guys Monday. I'll miss you guys.
By the way, you look great in the video. I mean, I don't mean to. Reduce you to your looks, but because we have this ongoing, like, who can keep up with the intermittent fasting, it's clearly working better for you than me.
The camera still adds 15 pounds. I since that video, I think I've really lost weight again.
You look fabulous. I mean, I look like Pavarotti or something. Like hosting the Dom DeLuise. I'm looking like
Dom DeLuise.
I'm like a chef, who's kind of like come to my home. Come see the wall newspaper. Anyway, does anybody remember Dom DeLuise? It's such a reference from the. I'm surprised you know who Dom DeLuise is. Isn't that from the 80s? Oh, okay, yeah.
My favorite comedian is Don Rickles. Go figure.
Yeah. Kian, take care of yourself, Azam.
Thanks.
I hope you feel better.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Kian.
Bye.
No.
I don't know how much.
Don't you want Kian's life?
This is fucking ridiculous. Like, I can't believe this. Yeah, I'm sick. Because tomorrow I'm going to Turkey. Hold on. What are you doing? Don't file my nails like that. Like, that's what it feels like.
You see, you would have known if you had seen her at the salon again, your regular salon that you go to. To have your beard trimmed. All right. Well,
where is that place? Turks and what?
Turks and Caicos.
It's like in the Caribbean. It's near
Bahamas.
Bahamas.
There are islands there. Yeah. Very fancy, lovely getaway.
For the weekend. She's just going like for.
It's just when it's getting warm now. You don't have to go south now. Although I think it's great. Good for her. Yeah. Hopefully she'll feel better. All right. So listen, we're going to get to the letters about the Nowruz video. We're going to get to Ash Koosha later in the show. All of that coming up. But first, I do want to talk about the sad loss of an intellectual giant in the Iranian community in the last few days, especially the Iranian diaspora, and right here in Toronto, Canada. Dr. Reza Baraheni was someone that I had the honor to meet a few times. I'd done a couple of memorable interviews with him in the last 20 years that I will always treasure. He was an Iranian novelist, a poet, and an activist. He was profoundly passionate about free speech, about censorship and human rights, and he was considered by some to be the founder of modern literary criticism in Iran. He was the author of more than 50 books in Persian and English. He taught at the University of Toronto in recent years and was a former president of PEN Canada, an organization that celebrates literature, defends freedom of expression, and aids writers in peril. Dr. Baraheni was a captivating speaker, as many of you will know, in both Persian and English. Take a listen to this.
همیشه ما گورستان‌های نو می‌آفرینیم اما دل مرا ببین که در گرو گورستان‌های کهنه است که گورهاشان در خاک غربال می‌شوند. زمان کشیده جهان را به توبره و ناگهان کسی از راه می‌رسد هزاره دیگر و بر مزار سنگی و سقفی و نام و نشانی می‌افرازد و در برابر آن دو دست بر سینه به سنگ می‌نگرد می‌گرید شبیه من.
Yeah. A little sound from the late Dr. Reza Baraheni, the great Iranian writer who died at the end of last week. To talk about his life and legacy, I'm joined by his son right now, who in fact captured the video that goes with that sound that you just heard on his phone. Arsalan Baraheni is a Canadian producer, director, a writer, and artistic director based in Toronto, Montreal, and Los Angeles. His independent films have premiered in some of the most important cinemas and universities around the world. He's the founder of Baraheni Films and the artistic director of the Montreal Independent Film Festival. And right now, Arsalan joins me from Toronto today. Hello, Arsalan.
Hi, Jian. How are you? Thank you for having me in your show.
I'm first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss, brother. The last few days could not have been easy for you. How are you doing?
Well, it's been very challenging. I mean, like, we didn't expect this heart attack to happen, and this happened about 3 days ago. And you know that my father was suffering from Alzheimer's for the past 6 or 7 years, but it kept escalating, this awful disease. And he broke his hip, and then we couldn't take care of him anymore. He was staying at a nursing home the past couple of years, and then the pandemic came. We couldn't visit him as much as we wanted to, so it was very challenging, very heartbreaking for all of us as a family. And I mean, he's known as a legendary poet. He's known as the father of literary criticism in Iran. So, and he's also perhaps the most important Iranian Canadian figure in exile. As the president of PEN Canada, as a university professor, and as an activist. So it's been very challenging, very heartbreaking for all of us. And I should thank everyone from inside of Iran and outside of Iran who've been sending us all these flowers and messages and everything. And on the other hand, you're dealing with a lot of, extremist groups that are attacking him day and night, trying to disregard what he's done when it comes to the literary language and poetry in Iran, and his contributions to the literary language. So it's a lot going on, my friend. It's a lot going on.
I want to get into some of that. I know that these are difficult days and busy days for you, so I'll try not to keep you too long. But first and foremost, there's a funny thing, isn't it? When somebody has been sick for a while, as your dad had been, and incrementally so. And it was, as you know, it was personally heartbreaking for me, because I would ask you in recent years, do you think he'd be okay to do an interview? And you would just say, he's just not totally able to do that, in terms of his faculties and his abilities. But there's this notion that when somebody has been sick, it's somehow easy or expected or softens the blow when they pass. But that's not really true, is it?
Honestly, his passing was somewhat gradual for me as a son, because I saw him, I saw his disease and how it kept, eating him up, and how it progressed every single day that was passing, So it was kind of gradual. It was kind of a gradual death. But a family member's death is never easy, regardless of your relationship. Even all the relation, in all our relationships as fathers and sons, we have our ups and downs, obviously, But losing a father is never easy, and especially for him, because we were really close. I mean, our relationship was not just like a traditional father-son relationship. It was more of a artistic friendship, a very close friendship. There was no, he was always against censorship, and that, how much he fought for censorship in Iran, for human rights in Iran, in both regimes. I mean, here's a man who was imprisoned in both regimes, in Shah's regime and then the Islamic regime. And here's a man who had to migrate and live in exile twice in both regimes. And a lot of people, unfortunately, extremist groups that are in the media right now, they don't care about the literature, the writing, the poetry, and what he's done when it comes to human rights. And they're very ideological, and they're trying to create their own character from this important literary figure, which is international, and it doesn't belong just to the Iranians, it belongs to the world,
How Arsalan, how aware was he? I would think it'd be crushing, especially for such a brilliant intellectual. How aware was he in recent years that he was that his mind was ebbing?
He was somewhat aware, but he was trying to deny it. He wouldn't accept it, because the people who have Alzheimer's, they don't know they have Alzheimer's. They don't remember, and they don't know that they're forgetting, and then Alzheimer's is not just about your memory. You start getting paranoid about everything that is happening around you. So it's like paranoia, hallucinations, memory, and all these things, combined together, and it's very painful for him and the rest of the family members to take care of him. And I honestly, I never talked about his Alzheimer's much, because I didn't want to basically bring this up in the media, but it was very painful for me to take care of him for years, me and my mom, because, my older brother lives back home in Iran.
Yes.
My stepsister's in the States, in Washington, and sometimes she helped us out when we needed help, A few times, he went to the States and, he stayed there. But most of the time he was here with us, and we were trying our best to take care of him and do our best. But at some point, when he fell down in the shower and broke his hip, then he went to the hospital, and it was just out of our control. We couldn't do anything afterwards. We couldn't take care of him. He needed to be under supervision of the nurses full time, But they're not aware that they're developing Alzheimer's, and that's what makes it a lot more challenging.
Yeah. I want to get into his life and his legacy and some of the ways that he's been seen, as you say, through an ideological lens, usually unfairly, I think, in recent days. But before we get there, just personally, how would you, for somebody who'd never met him, how would you describe your dad?
I would describe him as one of the most legendary Iranian and Persian poets who basically, like, you know that we are also Azerbaijani Turks, but my father is one of the most important Persian poets, and he's also known as the father of literary criticism in Iran. This is something that didn't exist like this, you know, before the publishing of some of his books, which dealt with literary criticism in Iran, you know, such as Talad Mes, all the other books that he's written, you know, Kimya Haq, many others, you know. I would describe him as one of the most legendary Iranian poets and a human rights activist. That's how I would describe him.
You profiled him in one of the three films you made in a trilogy called the Exilic Trilogy in 2015.
That's true.
What did you want people to see in him in that film?
Well, the film was basically, you know, the film dealt with exile and the exilic mind. I know you spoke to him before about the exilic mind and liminality, perhaps, and some of those things. And I was fascinated with that because there's a part of his legacy and biography which deals with the exilic mind and what happens to the mind of the artist in exile, you know?
Yes.
And perhaps a lot of people that live in Iran, they don't know about this aspect or this side of his life, you know. So I wanted to bring some of that into this film, and the film is called Alchemy and Dust. So it's basically about how a poet takes the words and he turns it into gold. You know what I mean? So it's an alchemical literary process with poetry. And you know how important the Persian poetry is. Persian poetry is known as one of the most important, influential, and powerful poetries in the world, you know? So the film is a very poetic film, and I'm narrating the film as his son, shooting the film in exile. So the film deals with exile, his life, from my point of view, basically, and it's the colliding of basically the camera and the poetry and the words and the camera and his life together. You know, it's an half an hour episode as part of the Exilic Trilogy, which was released in a few cities in the States and in Canada as well, you know.
It's very powerful. I think you may be able to, people may be able to find it online if they search for it, but it's powerful. And you're right. I mean, I had a couple of interviews with him. The one that I always remember was in 2006. We did this. It was about an hour-long interview. It was a national interview. It was live. And he just blew me away. I was a little nervous at first. I was, I didn't know him at that point. I'm speaking to this important Iranian poet and novelist, and we're live, and I want to represent the Iranian, well.
You have to remember,
he was amazing. The interesting thing is, I mean, he is known as this incredible orator in Persian, but I just want to underline that he was also an incredible orator in English, and his explication of what he was, of the exilic mindset in that interview, is something that has stayed with me for the last 16 years as a really powerful, one of those ways of deconstructing the Iranian mindset. Those of us who live outside of Iran, especially Iranian mindset, that I've not heard anyone else touch in such a profound and personal way, and it was very memorable and interesting, of course, because he was not just doing this as an intellectual, but he was speaking of himself as a writer in exile. Your family was forced to leave Iran in the 90s. You were about 14 because of your dad's stance against censorship. What can you tell us about that time?
Well, you have to remember, my dad's PhD is in English language, and obviously his greatest talent was in linguistic structures, and this was his gift from childhood. because he was born in a poor family in, you know, the Tabriz city in Azerbaijan, obviously.
Of course.
You know, he was born in a very poor family there, but from perhaps from the elementary school, this person was fascinated with language, and this was his greatest gift, and he dedicated his life and legacy to the language, and literally language, you know. And this was not just the Persian language. He defended the other languages, including his own mother tongue, you know. And that's why some of the people are very ideological, because the nationalists don't like the fact that he defended the other minorities in Iran and their languages, you know, sometimes. But the truth of the matter is, my dad, during the Shah's regime, my dad was imprisoned. And I wasn't born during the Shah's regime. I was born after the revolution myself, you know. So he moved out of Iran. He was fighting against the Shah's regime. And all our intellectuals, they thought they were going to have some sort of, you know, human rights and freedom of speech when the Shah is gone. You know the rest of the story and what happened after the revolution, obviously, you know. A lot of people are trying to judge our intellectual movement and what happened in our history based on the Iranian Revolution and that timeline where they were fighting against Shah's regime. And they're trying to condemn all our intellectuals because they were speaking against Shah's regime because of the Savak and because of the tortures and because of the human rights elements, you know. But what happened afterwards, that my dad was very hopeful that the revolution was going to change the country, just like the rest of the intellectuals.
Sure.
He returned to Iran with my mom and my older brother from the States. He was also teaching in the States. He was teaching in various universities in the States, you know. And he returned to Iran, but what happened was devastating for him and for the rest of the family. He was fired from university. He was imprisoned again. And then when he was active in the Writers Association of Iran, they wrote the most important letter when it comes to censorship and freedom of speech in Iran, the 134 writers' letters. And they sent it to Arthur Miller and, you know, the International 10, and everyone supported that letter, and it became huge in the world. You know, it was like perhaps one of the most important movements that came out of Iran and the Writers Association. But then there were threats, and then there were the chain murders of Iran. And some of his friends, such as Mohammad Mukhtari, were killed during the chain murders. Yes. This was the main reason for why we had to settle in Canada and apply for refugee status in Canada. Yes. Yeah.
Were you how aware? Were you fearful as a kid when you were in Iran? Were you aware that
I knew what was happening because they were watching our house full time, and then they were taking him for questionings, and then the other writers like Saidi Sirjani and many others were like arrested. You know, like. They were imprisoned, and there were lots of things happening. Like, they came to him and said, "We'll cut you up if you don't stop talking," you know? And this is what they did to his friend. That's why we had to stay here and settle here. And he stayed as an exiled writer for all the rest of his life, you know? Till his death, he stayed in exile.
Arsalan, do you know why he was... did he ever talk to you about why he was so committed to free speech, to fighting censorship? I mean, he could have been, he was a great writer, a poet, a fiction writer. He didn't need to be as much of an activist as he was one of the founders of the Writers Association of Iran in the late 60s, all the way up to working with PEN Canada, etc. Why was that so important to him?
Well, Jian, you have to remember, most of our intellectuals in Iran, throughout the history of Iran, they have struggled with the authorities when it came to freedom of speech and censorship. All they demanded and all that they wanted was to be able to write freely. When it came to their characters, when it came to their novels, when it came to their political or social views, you know, we have the right as a human being to write freely and express our opinions freely. You know what I mean? And a lot of people right now in the West are even fighting for freedom of speech, you know?
Sure.
And for obviously in a patriarchal, masculine, traditional culture and civilization such as the Middle East, it's been a lot more worse. And even right now, we have many people who are fighting against censorship, but they're following in his footsteps. You know what I mean? Like some of his students, some of the people in the Writers Association in Iran, we have the same things happening all over, or even the filmmakers in Iran, you know, or all the artists, you know, all that the Iranian intellectuals wanted was to be able to write freely. But because of this, all of them were somewhat politicized and got involved with political or social issues, you know, and a lot of times they didn't even want to become political characters. They just cared about their own arts, you know. And I believe this is what might have happened to my dad too, you know, because what he cared about was his artistic character, literature, writing, poetry. But when somebody comes and tells you, you can't write this, you have to get rid of this sentence, you have to get rid of this character, then obviously you're going to go and say, you know, like, I don't accept this censorship. I'm tired of it.
How hard was it? How hard was it for him to not be able to return to Iran or visit Iran in the last 25 years? It was very hard.
It was very hard. It's been very hard for all of us. You know, even for me, you know, I came here when I was 14. Sometimes I wish I could, you know, all of us, maybe even you in your subconscious, we would have loved to have a country where we could have lived and worked freely.
Oh, not my subconscious. I mean? I'd go there tomorrow if I could. I mean,
same thing. You know, I wish I had the ability to make a film in Iran without censorship, without being worried about any sort of authority. You know what I mean? And it was very difficult for him, especially in the last few years after, like, because, you know, at some point he was the president of PEN Canada. Obviously, he was very active, you know, in the Iranian community, the Iranian Canadian community, the Canadian community with Massey College, York University. So he was busy with all these things. But then when he stopped working, he became very lonely. At some point, he came to me and said, "You're my best friend because nobody comes to visit me." Oh. You know, and that was very heartbreaking. I remember one day I hugged him, and then he was like crying and saying, like, "I think you're my best friend now." You know, so it's been very challenging for all of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough.
And I understand the anger that even some of the extremist groups and the younger generation people have, because I believe that millions of Iranians outside the country are angry too, because they want to have a country, they want to have a homeland, they want to belong to somewhere, they respect their language, their culture, their tradition to some extent. Even if they don't, they want to see some revision, they want to see a better future for the country where they could live together. And I hope to see some sort of unity at some point amongst Iranians, instead of seeing them fight with each other continuously, day and night, you know?
I have to say that, I mean, that that clip we played, that passage we played, that clip from your father, it really is somewhat prophetic. He's talking about how we project all kinds of ideas and opinions and identity onto a tomb when someone has died, and that's happening to his legacy already, as you've intimated throughout this interview. Can you talk about how you've been affected by how your dad has been talked about in the last few days?
Well, first of all, poetry and art itself is somewhat prophetic. You know what I mean? You always project yourself. You always bring something from inside of yourself, from your subconscious, from your past, and then you're projecting your future to some extent too, you know? That's an element of art, and it has nothing to, I can't say it's mystical, but it might sound somewhat mystical, you know, even though he wasn't into mysticism. But some of his poems are actually, they're very musical, they're very prophetic at some point. Like, I sometimes post some of his poets on social media, and it seems like he's talking about himself, about his future. And the same thing has happened in his novels sometimes, you know? So that's absolutely right, what you just said about it being kind of prophetic, you know?
And how are you affected by what you've talked about, that the different groups sort of taking kind of using his name in one way or another?
I believe in dialogue, and that is what he believes in. This is what I learned from my father too, and I believe that our intellectual movement itself demands not just freedom of speech or like human rights or the elimination of censorship. It's about being able to have dialogue. You know what I mean? Somebody might say that he doesn't believe in God, and somebody else might say that he believes in God. This doesn't mean that you should be enemies. Somebody else could be a leftist and have their own way of thinking, To have dialogue is progress, and it's more democratic to have dialogue, I guess. But unfortunately, our community is missing this. Everybody has become very ideological. Everybody sees the world as black and white. So this is very painful, So you can't really have dialogue with somebody who's already made his mind with absolute terms and definitions,
I really appreciate you taking the time today. I know what it's like to lose a dad who you really love and respect as much as I did my dad and you did yours, and it is not an easy thing, and I know this is a difficult time for you, and I appreciate the time you've taken to talk about him a little bit with us. You said something interesting when we began. You said your relationship with Dr. Baraheni was not that of a father-son, but was of two artists. Or can you speak about that a little bit?
It was a very close relationship. I know a lot of his secrets. I know a lot of his biography. He revealed things to me because I think maybe subconsciously he thought that at some point maybe I'll be able to reveal some of these things. You know what I mean? And he trusted me with those things. He was very open. He was a very open-minded character. The elimination of censorship from in Iran was not just in those terms, but it applied to our family too. So we had a family that was very open with each other, and in all terms and in all the relationships. So we were very close. We used to laugh a lot, talk a lot at nights. We used to walk around the house, talk about history, about arts, about literature, about filmmaking. And I think filmmaking contributed to this, because when I started studying films, obviously I talked more to him about my own work, about my own scripts, because I wanted to know what he thinks about my own writing or my film projects. And then I noticed that he was about to basically lose his memory at some point. So I started to record a portion of his life, and turn it into a film, In Alchemy and Dust, and my other film, A Poet is Killed, which deals with censorship and human rights and the chain murders in Iran. Yes. He's also one of the main characters in that film. And the rest of all the material that we see from my father in BBC Persia, Iran International, and Voice America, all of them actually come from my studio, And I'm glad I did this, because it was right on time. And if I missed it by a few months or a few years, it would have been impossible for me to have those footages, And a part of it goes back to our personal relationship and how he trusted me and how close we were together, not just as a father and son, because we didn't have a typical father-son relationship, as I mentioned to you. It wasn't like a traditional father-son relationship,
Was he hard on you artistically? Would he look at your work and be critical, or would you?
No, in fact, I don't mention this a lot, but I always know that he was the first person who encouraged me from childhood when it came to arts. And he encouraged a lot of other younger generations as well. And right now in Iran, I see a lot of his fans are the younger generation who never met him, but they connected to his work, to his poetry, or to his writings, you know.
Did you ever feel pressure? Did you ever, did you ever lament the fact that I think I remember once after a screening of your film, you told me that it sucks that people always want to talk to you about your dad, you know.
I felt pressured, and I still do feel pressured by the fact that everybody wants to give a single identity ideologically to our family. I might have my own differences from my own father when it comes to my own historical, political, social, or artistic views. His views might be different to me, you know. So you can't just, like, a lot of people want to say, you have the same views, you have the same character. So if somebody hates my dad right now, they hate me. And if they love him, they love me. That doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? But this is what happens, obviously, in traditional, somewhat patriarchal cultures. And in patriarchal cultures, they always have more respect for the elder people too, you know. So your dad always comes first. That's why I ran away from the Iranian community. I'm trying to always work outside the Iranian community, but then this Iranian identity is always with me, regardless of where I go, because it's a part of me, you know. I can't get rid of it. So that's why, even though I live outside of Iran, even though I kind of grew up outside of Iran, a lot of my films still deal with the Iranian, basically with the Iranians and the Persian language and the Iranian culture and the Iranian system.
How could you quit it?
Particularly the intellectual movement in Iran.
You can't quit it. It's not going to be possible.
You can't quit it. You know.
What? Last question to you. What will you miss the most about your dad?
I miss talking to him. I miss talking to him, walking around and talking with each other, you know, walking around. And sometimes we used to get in fights too, because, like, obviously not physical fights, but then we'd have arguments, you know, like I would talk about something in history, or he'd say, no, I think it's like this. And I'd say, no, it's like this. And then we'd get into these huge arguments, but I miss those arguments. I miss those moments, you know, late at night. Imagine the whole world is sleeping, and then you're walking around talking to your dad, and you're talking about some of the most important artistic or social or political or cultural things in society, or the history of mankind. And then you get into a fight, and 2 hours later, you're still talking to each other, because we never disconnected. So it wasn't like we missed talking to each other for a day. No, we talked to each other all the time, even if we had an argument. And I've never had this relationship with anybody, you know.
Arsalan Jan, I'm so sorry for you and your family. My condolences. I'm so sad to not have your dad around. واقعا تسلیت میگم, and I really thank you for taking the time and
it was my pleasure to speak to you, Jian, and thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
Take care of yourself, brother.
You take care too, buddy.
Khuda
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Arsalan Baraheni, an Iranian-Canadian writer, producer, and director, and the son of the late Dr. Reza Baraheni. Arsalan joined us from Toronto today.
همسفر با من بیا تا بشنوی ایران من کجاست وطنم در قلب من در شعر تو در استخوان ماست و به رقص برخواهد خواست آزاد و پر لبخند مثل دماوند همسفر با من بیا تا بشنوی ایران من کجاست وطنم در شعر تو در رقص من بر آسمان ماست و چه زود برخواهد خواست آزاد و پر لبخند مثل
The sounds of the song The Dance of Damavand. That is a version of the Roqe theme that we released last week. And the lyrics by our very own Shaya. And that's Rana Mansour singing and playing the piano. And the music composed by me. Yes. And that is, we did a video that featured dancers inside Iran with a message about dance in Iran. So basically the song is a tribute to the artists in Iran and around the world, Iranian artists. So if you want to see that video, you can go to our YouTube channel or our Instagram or our website, roqemedia.com, and see the Dance of Damavand there. All right. We have Ash Koosha coming up, but first, it's Monday. Even though Kian's not here, it's time for
Letters of the Week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Reza, you're going to help me out with these letters?
I'll help you out, monsieur.
Monsieur?
Yes,
right.
Oui.
I wasn't sure what you said there. Sounds like you said miss you. We have this couple of days ago, in fact, we put out our 2022 Nowruz Home video. This is becoming an annual tradition now, where we put out our yearly Nowruz video, where we only speak in Farsi, and we get reflective and we do some dancing around. And so we've gotten a bunch of comments and letters on that. We'll get to those today for our letters of the week. This is I'm supposed to pick a letter of the week because Kian isn't here. Which one can I pick here? I think the last one. All right. So on Instagram we had a Setare Madavi who said, "Happy Nowruz, Roqe family. This is the most touching video I've seen in the 1401 year." That's this year, right? Yeah. I laughed out loud and cried hard. You guys are amazing. Thanks for bringing us to your home. Wish you all the best. I like it. It sounds like we all live in the same home.
Yeah, we all live at Jian's.
God forbid. But that's really lovely.
That's awesome.
The most touching video. Very nice. Okay, you're up.
I'll read.
Thanks,
this one. I'll read this one. Mona Ismailian wrote to us saying, "Thank you all. It's my very first year not being in Iran, especially during the Nowruz. It was so emotional. Happy Nowruz, Roqe Media."
Thank you for that, Mona. And of course, that the second half of the video is really a conversation about what you guys who grew up in Iran miss about not being there for Nowruz now, and what those of us who grew up in the West saw Nowruz as, and what we're missing out on. Yeah. So it got reflective, and people are reacting to that. This also on Instagram from Fereshte Noor, who said, "So good to see all your beautiful faces. Always listen to your podcast and imagined your faces except for Shia." Does that mean because she's seen my face, or doesn't want to imagine my face?
No, she's seen you everywhere.
Thank you, Fereshte. And yeah, it is nice to see everybody's face.
It is. Put a face to the voice. And on that note, we have another letter, Azi Karami, who wrote, Happy you decided to make another Nowruz Home video. I was so excited to see the Roqe team and get to hear you all speaking Farsi. Thank you, Ozzy.
Very nice. And Aryan Nazi says, what a beautiful tribute to Nowruz. I got goosebumps and tears in my eyes. Bravo, Team Roqe. Happy Nowruz, kiddos. Very nice. Kiddos. Thank you for that, Nazi.
Next is Homeira Tahvildari. I laughed a lot and cried a bit. You guys rock. Happy Nowruz, Jian and Roqe team.
Nice. And from Patty Naz Telekhani, thank you, dear Jian and amazing Roqe team. It brought back so many memories of Iran and aid.
So nice. On YouTube, we had Turaj Khosravi. Who wrote, can I be part of the team? I'm being serious and ready to change my career overnight.
I got a few of these. I'm not going to lie. I got a few DMs from people saying, can I be part of you?
They want to hang out with us.
I guess we put out the fiction that we all get along and have a good time with
that it's a lot of fun doing this job. I mean,
little do people know how we really feel.
I know.
No, that's really nice that people got that impression. Dr. Amir Ruzati, Nowruz Tabrik to the entire team with the great dance moves. Great to see everyone on video. Jian's Farsi had a big improvement this year. I think that's probably true.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And finally, the letter of the week.
Yay!
Yes, you go for it.
I'll go. And the letter of the week goes to Hani Aryan. Lovely Hani Aryan wrote, I nearly cried laughing. You guys are the cutest ever. I know the smell of spring you spoke of, and it's the most brilliant. The video was very well done. Happy Nowruz. Nice. Thank you, Hani John.
Thank you, Hani. And that was a revelation to me that there's this. I've now spoken to a few people about it who go, yeah, absolutely. That there's actually a scent, a smell of spring that people associate with Iran and Nowruz time. In the video, Shai, you say that you open the door of your house and you can
smell it.
Yeah.
It's especially if you are in Shiraz, it's famous. Bahar Shiraz, it's famous. So yeah, that's a smell, scent.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments, your notes. You can always write us for if you want to write a longer letter at info@roqemedia.com or post on any of our platforms. And you can find all of this content, including the Nowruz video, at roqemedia.com. Well, in an age of rapidly changing and evolving technological growth, what is the future of music and music creation? And what role might the metaverse and artificial intelligence play in the sounds you consume while you're cooking, dancing, jogging, or going to a concert? My next guest today is an Iranian-born, London-based electronic musician and a familiar face and voice for many Iranians both inside and outside of Iran. He's a futurist, but also an artist whose own electronic sounds create captivating aural landscapes. Take a listen to this. Little taste of a track from Ash Koosha Nejaz, or more simply Ash Koosha. The track is called Mudda Fossil from 2016 in the album I, aka I. So Ash was born in Iran, spent his early years between Tehran and Frankfurt, always fascinated by rock music at first. Ash says he watched MTV at night, bought cassettes of the Rolling Stones on the black market on the streets of Tehran in the 90s. He studied classical music at the Tehran Conservatory of Music and was one of the first students who was making music with a computer. He formed an indie rock band called Take It Easy Hospital with singer-songwriter Negar Shaqaqi, and was the co-star of Bahman Gulbadi's acclaimed movie No One Knows About Persian Cats. You may remember that from 2009, exploring the underground music scene in Tehran. Ash sought asylum in the UK thereafter, partly as a result of the reaction to the film in Iran. More recently, Ash has been working in the realm of the intersection between music creation and artificial intelligence, and is the founder of the company Ox Human Inc., with the technological mission of building virtual musicians. Right now, Ash Koosha joins me from London, England. Hello, sir.
Hey, it's nice to be with you. Thanks for having me.
It's very nice to have you on the program, and nice to know that you're in the city of my birth, a London boy. I appreciate that. Yeah,
this is amazing. London is great. Yeah, I didn't know that, by the way. That's good. Yeah, so you're a Londoner.
I say it as much as I can because I'm a proud Londoner. You know, I was thinking about you and thinking my term for you is digital explorer. I hope you're okay with that. And even in the music you create, your pieces flow as the one we just heard, but they have this wondrous improvisational appeal to them. It's almost like, I was thinking it's like listening to a Keith Jarrett concert, for those who will get the reference to the famous jazz pianist, where you don't know what's premeditated, what is spontaneous. So in a piece like the one we just heard, how much of that was prescribed and how much of it is it you just being adventurous while recording?
I would say most of it is just being adventurous, just because my core thesis around just making things and my general activities in life is around experimentation, just like looking into what is possible rather than what has been possible for a long time and just following that. And during that process, you usually find yourself in a space where you just like do things that don't make sense to yourself or others, but you have to be okay with that. So my experimentations, now let's go deep into the lab. It was all about years and years of studying spatial theory versus sound science, which was, I mean, in my realm, I tried to find a way to look at music as physical space, or a speculative physical space, or virtual reality.
Let me stop you there, because you've already lost me and probably most of the audience. I know that's your intent as a digital explorer, but let me just unpack what you've just said. First of all, 4 steps back. Why the yearning for experimentation? I mean, do you get bored just playing a Beatles song, or a Dariush song for that matter? Where did this desire to need to be experimental come from?
It's a difference between when I make stuff, whether it's like working in music or movies and technology software. That is completely different than when I listen to music. I listen to like acoustic, like folk music, classical music, soundtracks. It doesn't matter. Like when I listen to sound, I love melody and emotions and sort of emotion building.
But you don't want to create that?
But when I do it myself, even though I love to place some melody in there, there is emotion. I still want to have a question of what is possible. That's one of the reasons that I am not actually very active in the music industry as an artist. And over the years, I've been known to work on system innovation in a sense. It's like, what is the medium? What is it about? And what the structure of music production is. And didn't want to really focus on myself being the product, the commodity in music. And experimentation in general comes from my long interest in futurology. Even it's funny, when we were doing the Persian Cats movie, even though I was like this like young like indie rock musician, and everybody looked at it as a culturally important move, which it was in my opinion. Yes. On a personal level, it was an experiment on what is possible, and why is it that we live in a country where we look at the outside, and aesthetically, technically, and culturally, and economically, and socially, there are many other things possible that we're not doing. So just that. It was pretty much an experiment around that.
But of course, when a film comes out like that, and it's a big film, and it's a documentary film, and you're one of the co-stars, that's how people start to identify you. And so it seems like, wait, the guy from that indie rock band is now doing electronic music to the outside world, right? One of the things that's fascinating about your story is that most of the people I think about that I've ever interviewed who are doing really interesting futuristic things in the digital space come from the digital space, like a computer guy who's flirting with music. You come from studying classical music composition. So tell me about how that led you into gravitating
towards... There's a story there, though. Until the age of like 6, 7, believe it or not, I say this to a lot of people and they're like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is not possible. I didn't know that instruments existed. I thought everything I see on MTV and like back then were like classical channels and concerts. Everything is digitally constructed. Everything is like made using a computer or like sophisticated broadcasting technology. I was a kid. I only looked at the computer in our house and the way I was using Commodore 64s and basic sort of computer language to make tones. And I thought, oh my God, they're making a lot better music than me, better melodies, because they have more sophisticated compute. That's how I knew music until 6, 7 years old. Actually, that's when we returned to Iran from Germany when I was a kid. And that's when I actually started seeing a little bit more into society and people playing it. And I thought when people played instruments when I was 5, that was a mimicking of the digital sound.
Wow. What a counterintuitive thing to think. It's quite interesting. So okay, but wait. So you find out that people are playing instruments. I mean, part of where I want to go with this is that you're not to take anything away from people who are, only operate on computers, etc. But you're a legit musician and a classical one. Yeah. But you gravitated towards the computers, towards the digital space, rather than analog or acoustic music. You don't want to sit and play a piano or an acoustic guitar.
I do it at home sometimes, but I don't want to sort of explore it further. I think it's perfect. It's just like, it's done and you can do many things. And it's like that intuition that acoustic and sort of tactile physical hardware gives us, that is perfect in my opinion. It's just the way it is. But
you have nothing to add to that. You don't want to,
you just explore the notations and like new forms of playing. Like you can't really start like rubbing your feet on the guitar string and say, oh, this is innovation, right?
No, but can you listen to a new Ed Sheeran song and go, oh, he's taken the old form of a guy playing an acoustic guitar and written a great new melody?
That's exactly why I hate Ed Sheeran. I mean, not himself, but his music. It's because it's just like trying to say, oh, I'm innovating using a guitar. No, dude, like you write songs, like, okay, like you have the chord structure that's been repeated and but when people start doing like these loops things and like they try to innovate using something that works perfectly, it just doesn't appeal to me. I mean, it appeals to millions of people. That's why, for example, acoustic music. Okay, I love this band called Big Thief. Mm-hmm. The reason for that is that they don't follow any gimmick. It's just like they love to engage as a person with an instrument to generate a sonic space for you with lyrics that they believe it's honest and it works for them as a person.
First of all, having met and interviewed dear Ed Sheeran a couple of times, I won't take this assault on poor Ed Sheeran. but really, what is? I think I know what you're going to say to this. But what is wrong with Ed Sheeran? If Ed Sheeran plays the guitar. Yes, he didn't invent the guitar. He didn't invent the acoustic, song craft, and he's not necessarily doing anything new. But if he writes a melody that inspires the masses in the process of doing that and has a sweet voice, what's wrong with that?
Oh, I like that. That's like saying, it's the same argument with food, right? They always say it with fast foods, like, you repeat the formulas and the sauce in creating like the best taste. But whatever's underneath and whatever process is not necessarily innovation. In my opinion, it's just like appealing to masses and keeping them going. That's the stimuli that human civilization needs in order to run and move forward, right? And I really appreciate that job, but they're rewarded really well. People like Ed Sheeran, right? Pop stars are rewarded really well because they follow this this very specific task of producing a product, a type of commodity that people listen to, and they sort of snap to it, and they keep moving forward to the next one, right? So, but in the context of innovation, that's what I'm saying. Like the melody, I'm fine with that. Ed Sheeran, like amazing, like he's prolific, writing songs for other people as well. But in the context of innovation, trying to do some gymnastics on fucking guitars, that's not to me. That's not an innovation.
I got you. But and I should just note that, I mean, you are an experimental musician, but you were doing pretty well. I mean, if you could carve out a career as an experimental musician, it's not like that door wasn't open to you, and so you had to find other things to do. It's that you were feeling this need, that you had to ask these questions and move beyond just music.
Sure. I mean, Google says I'm a musician, right? But in a sort of conventional sense or meaning, I'm not a career musician or a musician for that matter. I don't think the ability to do something makes you that thing, right? So if I can make a ton of music and like come up with new melodies, I'm not a musician. Musician is devotion to the practice and devotion to the people who consume it, at least on a sort of career level. What I am interested in is building what potentials exist in the world that we haven't. And I've started coming out of music to close proximities of those potentials. And I mean, the current update is that I've completely moved on even from the prior company that I was in recently, just like 3 months ago. And I've started a new company, very well funded, called Orbit, with my brother for the first time. That we're building the next generation of cloud computing for immersive products.
Wow. Okay. Let me get to Orbit. But first of all, I love the ongoing disconnect between who we are and what Google says we are. It's just playing catch up to what Google claims that you are based on what others think, right? You referenced Oxhuman, and this is where I really wanted to go with this interview, because it really it gets my mind going, thinking about the idea of virtual musicians. So tell me about the founding of Oxhuman a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and which is, I guess, short for auxiliary humans, right?
Yes.
The precipitant and what the original mission of it was.
Yeah, so I was making a record during my time with Ninja Tune, and we didn't end up sort of releasing some of the records. And I was like, no, I need to move on to something else. And I was working on this record that had guest musicians, specifically vocalists. And then during that process, I just decided, you know what? I don't want to work with human guest vocalists. All due respect to all those amazing singers. I mean, they're still some of my favorite musicians. But I was like, I have managed to synthesize everything. I can fake. I remember there's a specific example. I recorded a sound of cleaning the glass. This like screechy weird sound that it makes, it's annoying, and I turned it into a violin sounding synthesis, right? It's just a synthesizer, and that was kind of the holy grail of synthesis. Was like, can I just come up with a voice model where I can just use, and it might sound really wonky and bad, but still it would make sense emotionally. And that's the first track called Yona 1.1. It was just like a fake voice guest on my record, actual. And during that time, I wrote some notes on what is the sort of value of emotional synthesis, like synthetic emotions and expressions. Why do we need them? And looked at assistants, voice assistants. Why do we not use Siri? Why do we not use a voice like Alexa? And there are many reasons for that we can get into, but broadly speaking, it was because the use of synthetic emotion in assistants are very dissonant with how we want to communicate. For example, if I order my phone constantly to do something, that is bad spirit. It's like I'm constantly ordering, it's like enslaving a fake entity. So that was not the right use of synthetic beings or virtual beings. That initiated the idea of why don't we look at video games and how they use CGI and computer graphics to make these characters in games that are not players. They call them NPCs, non-player characters, right? You go on GTA or any video game, they're players and they're non-players. They're built by the company that built the story, and they're just there, they live their lives. And I want to expand on that, but through music as well. It's like, what if I go to Grand Theft Auto 5 and there's a musician? And what if they have a life? What if they have a social media account? What if they are on Twitter or whatever, right? How do we synthesize that? And that's the beginning of building Yona, and then subsequently auxiliary human company, which refers to NPCs that have emotions and intelligence.
But part of your mission is just not around your music, or at least with your mission with Human, was to be creating the conditions where anyone can be a musician, right? They can be they are virtual musicians. And if I understand this correctly, based on what you've said today and some of the research I did with you in your project, it's you're suggesting that there's enough music out there already through the generations, through the different musical genres, through the different styles on the internet, etc., that a virtual musician can be aggregating, can be taking pieces of all of the music that exists out there to create new music. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a collage. It's a song of all songs. And so that's how I make music, by the way. I have a record, I'm not going to say which one, that is entirely, as an experiment, made of very well-known noughties pop, like Timbaland music almost, right? And I mean, Timbaland, go sue me, you can't really find the sample because it's so processed, right? That was an experiment. It was a point I was trying to make. It was that composition off of recorded sound can be so complex, but yet emotional, that we are looking at a new type of music that uses something called propagation. And I'll get to that.
Okay, but here's where I wanted to push back, because it sounds like you're separating creating from curating, right? You're saying you no longer need to, learn the chords and figure out how to write the song, etc. You take what's out there, you curate it and put it together. But my argument would be that curation still takes creative talent. Even these DJs who have been just using samples. I remember once interviewing Deadmau5, and he kind of went, I'm not a musician. I'm just a guy who knows how to use the computer. But, actually, Deadmau5 knows he's got the creative wherewithal to put a bunch of samples together that become appealing to a mass crowd, right? That's still a creativity that you're not going to be able to find in just anybody, right?
That's true. And you can build systems around informing how you compose. So one of the inventions of humans, I would say in music, was MIDI format, which was like creating patterns around melody and rhythm and information. And that is becoming more and more sophisticated as we move forward. But the ideas around sampling, I would say, is the most interesting area to me, and how composition can be informed by structure and not by intention around writing classical melody. How to put sounds together, yes, but we have achieved a point in artificial intelligence and audio, specifically around what OpenAI has done recently with something called Jukebox, where they have where a machine has learned basically was like millions of songs, patterns through a language of 1,000 and something. I forgot the number. I should be remembering that. Yeah. And through that language, they are saying, hey, computer, listen to this music. These are the parameters, what it means to hear this sound or this pattern, and then hallucinate for me. Start dreaming. And that is for how I made music manually for a long time. I was hallucinating in a sense, right? I know I'm trained like in a classical way, blah, blah, blah. I know what I'm doing and stuff, but I actually created the anti-process of what I had learned through classical music by saying, this is collage. This is me like looking at a canvas and trying to fill it in and I don't know what I'm thinking. Tried as much as possible to make it a 50-50 process between me and the computer and saying the computer just gave me a pattern. Why not use it? It's weird, but let's use it. Let's give it a chance. And that is how it actually became odd, yet within a structure, beautiful.
Isn't it possible to see being an artist as more noble? I mean, that it's an artist is someone who creates.
Okay, noble. Okay, great.
And if
you call me noble on this one? If you tell me I'm a noble artist right now, I'll take that. Seriously, I'm going to be like.
No, I just mean that it doesn't have to be about getting on a private jet. It can be somebody who is maybe they're creating origami on their kitchen table. They're an artist, and if that's what it's about, creation, then you really are an artist because your entire world right now. I'm assuming you're not doing everything you're doing just to try and make money, right? You're doing it because it's stimulating you. It's your adventure. It's your exploration. You want to create new things. That to me is the apex of artistry. But who knows what these terms mean? But in terms of
but you just said like somebody does something in the kitchen, just like make something and make their family members happy, and that's art, right? Yeah, but I'm talking about noble, like the noble artist, right? Whereas like, what am I going to do as an individual? What am I going to do after I heard that? Like, I take it home and I'm going to sit down and think, oh, I'm a noble person. But this like, it's actually weird because I went on the Cannes red carpet. I remember with Bahman and everyone. I mean, bless him. He was also like a bit weirded out about like red carpets and all that because I think he's an artist. Like he just thinks every day in a very artistic sense, right?
100%, yeah.
Even about politics, he's like artistic.
Yeah.
And I think that was the moment it hit me. That's like one of the peak moments in my life. I was like, okay, this is such fabrication. It's like they're trying to sell me something. Is anybody here like trying to like take something from me? And I got it. And I got the answer when the press came in, right? 2 days of back-to-back press conferences, interviews, and the way they were asking questions, like, they're not even listening to what I have to say. They want to sell something. So I was right. They're, in Farsi, we say, meaning it's like they're taking us for like fools,
I know I can't keep you forever. This is so interesting to me. Let me, before I let you go, exploit you, not as a noble artist, but as a futurist, and really try and get if you can, let me try and get into your brain and see if you can help us see what some of what you're predicting, what you're expecting in the future. I heard you say at some point it was. Somewhere you did a talk or an interview or something in the last year or so, you said you believe the future of music is digital data that removes the sound element. Music that removes the sound element. It blows my mind. How do we make sense of that?
So that refers to the next phase in digital interfaces and why there's a need to remove the barrier between how our brain experiences sort of biological digital input. And I know Neuralink is right now the hot discussion in this realm, but I think it's way beyond this, where we internally can have input from external compute in our brain. And I know immediately people are thinking, oh my God, am I going to see like Google ads in my head while I'm thinking between my thoughts? It's going to be like, skip this ad for $2. But when I said soundless music, yeah, it's referring to brain computer interfaces where we actually just imagine music or visuals. And we're at least 50 to 100 years away from the first generation of that.
But so you would feel the feeling of a sad ballad of a song without without your ears hearing one.
No, you're hearing it.
Oh, you're hearing
internally, it. Right? So there's no waveform generated, but you're just like hearing. I'm
going to throw up. I can't handle it. I can't handle it. It's too hard. Wow. So, okay, maybe not 50 years or 100 years down the road. In the next 20 or 30 years, how do you believe we will be consuming music? I mean, if we went from, vinyl records to CDs to Napster to streaming services like Spotify and iTunes now, what do you think the next frontier is for the way we consume music?
I'm going to follow the pattern that already has started and exists, which is TikTok, right? There's a phenomenon in TikTok that I look at it as from very like deep sensory study, like neurological level, which is it's the first time what I was envisioning, which was the union of sound and visuals that is distinguishable from one another. It's like an audiovisual that happens that is matched and it's supposed to be matched, right? It's like, it's not even called music because it's also dancing. Which one was made first? That kind of thinking, right? So TikTok is pretty much that. It's like people are trying to match themselves to audio, and the audio is matched to, so the music that is being created now is slowly built for easier matching of your body movement, right? So unity of sensory, so multi-sensory music, in a sense. So I would imagine we're moving towards vibes. So the medium of music is just going to be vibes that are in the background of our life, and soundtrack moments and video games and the virtual worlds and the metaverse, whatever it will be in the future, will have these type of new digital sonic moments that are matched to just those worlds. And I think the economy around it is super important, and that will change as well through obviously the new improvements using blockchain and cryptocurrencies to be able to trade them immediately without having sort of physical liability and sort of legal limitations.
Wow.
And that medium to me is more of a stream of music rather than selling records. And people have been experimenting with this, like selling EPs in 2 chunks and like music that is 1 minute. Yeah, it's
necessarily shorter sound bites. If you're talking about TikTok, right? I mean, it's so if I have this correct, you're the creator, and let's not even say a musician at this point. The sort of the artist, the noble artist, has the intent of building a sound moment, or a moment that will satisfy that sound and dance movement, or what thing that's happening that's becoming all the rage on Reels and TikTok and all of that. It's writing towards that.
Yeah. So the question is, do I make 1 hour of music to get those moments out, or is it just like, do I compose for 45 seconds?
It's a riff. It's a riff.
I don't know that. Like, I wish I was younger. If I was like 18 right now, I would just like sit down and make 45 seconds music, like an album that's just like 5-second music.
Right. Well, if that's the future, it makes a lot more sense that those moments can be found through curating the existing library of the world of music out there, right? Rather than finding, back to your AI, finding little pastiches or collages that can create those moments. How do you believe, or how do you see all of this? What we just talked about, plus the AI, and the changing nature of music. How do you see it affecting the concert experience? I mean, I'm guessing there'll always be an appetite for a bar band, you know, doing, you know, blues or something like that. But do you see the way we consume music live and go gather as a group changing as well?
You know, everybody who's been to a concert knows that when you're in that environment, the grand level of bass and high end and the massive wall of sound can really take you somewhere else. So my answer to that is that is a very unique experience that cannot be replicated until we actually have that brain stimulation style interface. For now, I think it's a shame that through COVID there are no live concerts. I think there is always a question of technology replacing what existed. I don't think that's the case. It should really become an addition, another choice. Right? I know we have too many products in the world and like too much choice, but if choices are not about more choices of the same medium, they're choices between mediums, I think technology has been successful with that. And concerts are one medium, then virtual concerts are another medium. They're not a variation of the same medium. There should be a parallel sort of different medium.
Although if you had told me 20 years ago as a musician in the 90s or that people would pay to go to a space and where there's a guy standing on a stage just pressing go on his Apple computer and then doing a little dance with headphones on while he quote unquote DJs. I would
used to go and mix live samples and recompose using like generative samplers patched to one another. And I looked at the audience once, and I think there was one show. I'm not going to say where because the promoter is going to be pissed off. I went there and just put my sort of pre-session recorder iTunes, and I just like looked at the audience for like 40 minutes. I was like, they're having so much fun.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. What's the difference?
But it was about the audio, so I was kind of redundant. So that's why maybe, I mean, again, the question of if we actually make a spectacle of a holographic version of me and like visuals, and is that a more interesting than the very like curved back guy on stage like on their laptop? You know what I mean?
Ash, you are such an interesting guy, man. I've really enjoyed this. Before I let you go, let me let you do a shout out to your new company. It's funny because I saw Orbit on some of your social media, but you haven't done any. I haven't seen any. You talk about it in any interviews or anything yet. So and now I find out it's just a couple months old. This new company with your brother. So tell us as much as you can about this.
Last year, I moved on from Oxhuman, and the reason for that was that during the time at Oxhuman, we basically built a technology for streaming a new type of application from the cloud without needing a strong local computer, and I decided with Puya, my brother, that this is the path to build a company, and then handed over the company while I'm still an advisor at Oxhuman. Negar, who's also a longtime collaborator with me from the film, moving to music, and she was a product manager at Spotify as well. Mm-hmm. And now she is the CEO of Oxhuman, and they continue to build the sort of NPCs with talent and gamification of these NPCs. And I've moved on to building a platform. I can only say a little bit. Obviously, we're still in stealth and coming out next year. But we managed to attract a lot of funding from investors, which I can, again, not say. And the mission here is basically to build a new type of interactive entertainment that enables it's almost like video games or video game arcades that are super high quality. They don't need any downloading, and they enable fintech technology. It's in line with the new mindset in the world that if you are entertained, you also deserve to be paid for it, not to pay the entertainment platform. So we have managed to build a system by which you can invest in your time playing games and going between.
Wait a minute, you get paid for being entertained?
Yeah.
That sounds like a great deal.
yeah, it's a good deal because you engage with a community and you experience different worlds of different shapes. Like imagine like sitting in front of your Xbox and like jumping in and out of different games, but you don't pay for each game. You don't have to like worry about like in-game purchases. It's the other way around. Like the more you play, the more you invest in your future.
It's actually brilliant. If my nephew, who spent must be the equivalent of years on Minecraft by now, was getting paid, it would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the gaming economy has been flawed, and right now there's a discussion of there will be a next version of the internet. People are calling it the metaverse. It's not clear what it's going to be yet, but long story short, it does two things, in my opinion. It changes the 2D interface of the current internet, which is like text-based, and it's read and write. Like currently, like you just like read and respond, interact with the internet and all applications. But the next version of the internet, you can also play. You can be in a 3D space. It's multidimensional. There are other people and different worlds, and it's pretty sci-fi, but I think it's tangible now. And also the second thing it does is that you own your digital identity, and you don't pay any company any sort of free data, and they can sell it to advertisement. That model is going to shift rapidly. And also you will be able to start treating gaming as stock, as investing in your future, owning digital assets that yield in the future in very sort of positive and non sort of stock markety ways, like Wall Street ways, which is stock can be affected by a tweet, and we want these values to change. So we're creating this ecosystem where entertainment means something. It's like your activity was rewarded with something, and the community that you helped by paying initially is rewarded for creating more. So it's kind of like a double-sided profit mentality. Ash
Koosha, thank you. Thank you for the innovation. Thank you for the interview. And congratulations on all these investors. sounds pretty delicious. I look forward to talking to you again, man. I really enjoyed this. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, man.
Later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ash Koosha, a multidisciplinary artist, futurist, and technological entrepreneur. Ash joined us from London, England today. And this is full time for Roqe for today. You liked that, didn't you, Shaya?
Yes,
Some of that talk.
Yes.
Blew my mind. The idea that the way we think about making music is changing based on the platforms, the technology that exists, right?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
You can hear that again or anything in our Roqe catalog, previous episodes, Roqe funnies, Roqe moments, videos, Unmarried Persian Girls, the contemporary history of Iran, all at our website, roqemedia.com, where you can also become a patron and help us out, roqemedia.com. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together, Savvy Roham, talented Anahita, Ponta the artist, the fabulous Keon, Super Patty Saw, Ahoy Mertag, Captain Reza, and Groovy Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe. Find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. Mizun Plashi.